The apartment buzzed with a kind of electric excitement that night. It was supposed to be the last quiet weekend before the wedding chaos officially began. The bachelor and bachelorette parties, the seating charts, the final fittings. Her friends were there, filling our living room with the clinking of wine glasses and the sound of easy, unrestrained laughter. The kind of laughter that only happens when people believe nothing can possibly go wrong. I was in the hallway, fumbling around, pretending to look for my phone charger. It was just an excuse to be alone for a second, to take a breath before rejoining the party. That's when I heard her voice cut through the noise. It wasn't loud or angry. It was just careless. A little giggle, followed by words that hit me like a physical blow. "I invited my ex," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "I hope he comes." I spent the whole day shaving everywhere for him. The room erupted. Her friends howled with laughter like she'd just delivered the best punchline of the century. They thought it was hilarious. No one saw me standing there in the shadows of the hallway, frozen. I was just listening to the woman I was about to marry, casually setting our entire future on fire for a cheap laugh. My first instinct was to storm in there, to make a scene, to demand an explanation I wasn't even sure I wanted to hear. But I didn't. I stayed silent. I don't know why. Maybe it was shock. Or maybe it was the sudden, gut-wrenching realization that anything I said in that moment would be completely wasted on a room full of people who thought betrayal was a form of entertainment. So I just turned around, walked back into our bedroom, and quietly closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed we'd spent weeks picking out together, and I just tried to breathe. I replayed her words over and over in my head, desperately searching for some hidden meaning, some inside joke I had missed. But there wasn't one. The meaning was crystal clear. Later that night, she came to bed, cheerful and affectionate. She kissed my cheek and started talking about how excited she was for her party, for our wedding, for our life. I just stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. I wondered, how long had she been living this other life? This life I knew nothing about? The next morning, the sun streamed through the curtains as if it were just another day. She woke up smiling, stretched like a cat, and then casually mentioned she expected breakfast in bed because it was her big weekend. She rolled over, her tone playful and sweet, and asked if I was nervous about getting married. Looking at her, I realized how effortlessly she could switch between different versions of herself, depending on who was watching. I told her I had some errands to run. I left the apartment without saying another word. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, but it wasn't from rage, it was from clarity. Suddenly everything made sense. The secretive phone calls, the new obsession with the gym, the way she'd accuse me of being insecure whenever I asked a simple question, all the little puzzle pieces clicked into place. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just started making phone calls. I called the venue, I called the caterer, I called my family. I sent emails that undid years of planning and trust in just a few minutes. It was humiliating, of course. But it was far less humiliating than the thought of standing at an altar, looking into her eyes, knowing what I knew. When I got back to the apartment, it already felt like a place I used to live. She was still there, sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up, surprised to see me back so soon. "Where's my breakfast?" she joked. Instead of a tray with food, I handed her a small envelope. Inside was a printed screenshot I'd found on our shared tablet. It was a message from her ex, confirming that he'd definitely show up to her party. Her smile vanished. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice sharp. "It's the reason there's no breakfast," I said quietly. At first, she tried to laugh it off. She called it a joke, said her friends were just being dramatic, called me oversensitive. But when she saw my expression, when she realized I wasn't buying it, pure panic took over. "You weren't supposed to hear that," she said, as if my hearing it was the problem, not her saying it. I told her the wedding was off. The room, which had been so quiet, suddenly filled with shouting. There were tears, accusations, claims that I was overreacting and ruining everything. I just stood there, calm. I realized that my silence the night before had prepared me for this moment far better than anger ever could have. Her bachelorette party still happened. Not because I was okay with it, but because her choices were no longer my problem. I went to stay with a friend, my phone blowing up with texts from mutual friends. Some were confused, some were shocked, and some suddenly had very strong opinions. A few told me I was doing the right thing. Others said I was throwing away something amazing over a silly joke. Around midnight, a photo came through from a friend who thought I deserved to know the truth. And there she was, laughing, drink in hand, with her ex standing right beside her, the man she'd shaved for. The man she swore meant nothing. Seeing it, I didn't feel a surge of anger. I just felt done, completely and utterly done. The next morning, she showed up at my friend's place. Her mascara was streaked down her face, her voice hoarse from crying or partying or both. She swore she didn't mean it, that it was all for attention, that weddings make people do crazy things. She promised it would never happen again. I asked her one simple question. If I hadn't overheard you, if I hadn't found that message, would you have ever told me? She didn't answer. And her silence was louder and more damning than anything she had said. I told her I wished her well, and I asked her to leave. She started screaming that I was throwing away years of our life over one single night. I didn't bother correcting her. Some lessons just don't stick if you try to soften the blow. As she walked away, I realized I wasn't losing my future. I was escaping a lifetime of wondering who she was when I wasn't in the room. The weeks that followed were a blur. The wedding date came and went without a sound. I returned gifts, closed joint accounts, and learned how to explain heartbreak without feeling like I had to apologize for my decision. One afternoon, a furious text came from her. Her ex had ghosted her. The same friends who had laughed at her joke had moved on to the next drama. The excitement was gone, replaced by the cold, hard consequences nobody had bothered to warn her about. She accused me of abandoning her when she needed me most. I didn't reply. The surprise she'd been expecting that morning breakfast in bed, a devoted fiancé willing to look the other way, was never going to arrive. Instead, she got something far more permanent, the truth of who she was when there was no one left to clean up her mess. I moved into a smaller apartment and started over. I learned that choosing silence isn't a weakness, it's a strength. Months later, I ran into her at a grocery store. It was completely random. She looked tired. We gave each other a polite, distant nod. There was no anger, no lingering regret, just space. As I walked away, pushing my cart down the aisle, I felt a sense of profound peace settle over me. I hadn't just dodged a bullet. I'd dodged a whole lifetime built on a foundation of laughter I was never supposed to hear. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever been through something similar, know that you're not alone. Sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most peaceful outcomes. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.